Hi everyone, and welcome back to JoJo's Book Club. I'm JoJo, and we've got a great story for you today about one of my favorite artists. Let's check it out. Today's story is called Yayoi Kusama, From Here to Infinity. Infinity means it goes on and on and on. This story was written by Sarah Suzuki and illustrated by Ellen Weinstein. Yayoi Kusama, From Here to Infinity is published by the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Some of us call that MoMA. Yayoi Kusama was born in the country of Japan on the island of Honshu in a town called Matsumoto City. An old palace made of wood and stone overlooked a moat where swans swam, the streets were lined with little shops, and snow-capped mountains rose in the distance, swallowing up the sun as it went down in the evening. Yayoi's family owned nurseries where all kinds of flowers and vegetables grew, and workers tended the plants as they matured from seeds to sprouts to stalks. But Yayoi yearned for a different life, far from the countryside. She dreamed about what lay beyond the mountains, in places far from Matsumoto City. She longed to leave home and see the world. Yayoi's mother wanted her to stay home and learn old-fashioned manners, how to dress elegantly, walk demurely, eat politely, and find a proper husband. But Yayoi wanted to be an artist. Every day she went outside with ink and brushes and paper. She drew things she saw and things she imagined. She looked closely at the pebbles that lined the riverbed and at the leaves and stalks of plants. And she drew them as chains of tiny cells that looked like dots. When she was older and studying in art school, her teachers disapproved of her work, and they demanded that Yayoi paint in the traditional, precise Japanese style. She wanted to go where she could live without rules. I wonder what that means. To live in a world without rules. What do you think that would feel like? I'm wondering, what does a world without rules even look like? Let's see if she finds out. When she was 28 years old and she packed up her silk kimonos and thousands of drawings and stuffed dollar bills into the toes of her shoes. It was her first airplane trip. There were only 4 other passengers, and the weather was stormy with rain and lightning. The airplane wobbled and dipped as it flew to America. In New York, Yayoi went to the top of the Empire State Building, the tallest building in a city full of tall buildings. When she looked down, she saw buses and cars and yellow taxis zooming up and down the avenues, and bankers and teachers and artists rushing to work. From up on the 86th floor, they all looked like dots. She felt very far from quiet Matsumoto City and her mother's rules. Here, it seemed, anything was possible. Yayoi set about turning her drawings of dots into paintings. The dollar bills that she had brought to America quickly ran out, and she spent what little money she had left on paints and canvases. She worked day and night. She painted when she was cold, she painted when she was hungry, and she painted when she was lonely. And she turned her dots into sculptures too, into soft, stuffed tubes that covered sofas and chairs and boats. She was devoted to her dots, for they were a way of thinking about the world among the stars, as one dot among a million others. They were her way of thinking about infinity. Sometimes when she grew frustrated, she visited the Museum of Modern Art. She gazed at paintings by other artists, and she thought about why and how they were made. She looked at pictures of dancing girls and swirling night skies, trying to solve them as if they were puzzles. Her paintings seemed so different from those she had seen at MoMA. When she was at last ready to show her work in public, she invited all the friends she had made in New York. When she arrived at the gallery, a crowd was spilling out onto the sidewalk. Her friends lifted her into the air, shouting, "Yayoi, you've finally done it!" Word about her artwork spread quickly. Her friends told their friends, newspapers wrote about her work, and reporters clamored to interview her about her dots. Now she began to show them in other cities all over the United States and Europe. Her dots were covering the world. They appeared in Venice in thousands of dot-shaped mirrors scattered over a big green lawn, on a pumpkin, on a pier, on dresses and t-shirts, on people walking down the street, and in mirrored rooms where glowing dots were reflected and reflected again, an infinity of dots. And here's a picture of what Yayoi Kusama would look like in one of her rooms surrounded by dots. I wonder how the artwork makes her feel now, and I wonder how you feel about this art. Does art make you feel silly? Does it make you feel sad? Does it make you feel great? Having visited many countries all over the world, Yayoi returned to Japan. The country had changed since she left, with many different artists challenging the old traditional style, as Yayoi had been doing all along. She still lives in Japan, and she continues to paint her dots every day. And that, my friends, is the end of the story part of this book. Now there's a little bit of information about the artist using real pictures. Here are pictures of artworks by Yayoi Kusama. Do you remember seeing any of these inside the story? Here's a picture of one of her famous rooms called the Infinity Mirrored Room. She covered a room with mirrors on all sides and lights, so that way the lights would go on and on and on for infinity. How would you feel if you were standing in this room? Here's another one of her artworks. It's called the Obliteration Room. Now this room is really special because Yayoi did not make it by herself. This room started out completely white, and then Yayoi invited people to come and see it, but she gave them dot stickers. So every person who's ever visited this room left a dot, and then more people left dots, one after the other, until it started to look like this. The room is still open, and I wonder what it looks like now. Finally, here's a picture of the real-life Yayoi Kusama. As of this recording, she is still creating artwork, and this is what she looks like, covered in her dots, surrounded by her dots. But you might notice she's not smiling. I wonder how she feels being in this room, and I wonder how she feels having her picture taken. All right, everyone. So I wonder if you remember why Yayoi Kusama liked dots. What did they remind her of? I wonder if you see any dots around you. Now that you've read this story, do you think of them a little bit differently? I hope so. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you for the next one. Bye now.